Hey everyone, it's RobbbRyder. This video is going to be covering, well, things I've talked about really in my last 4 videos. Option B, Central Violation Bureau, case dismissed administratively, Fannie Mae loan numbers, and Fannie Mae under many hats, and it probably even further back. But so a lot of what I'm going to speak of, I think, can be used in multiple cases, and I'm just trying to put a lot of little pieces together in one place. And that's because, well, this is a FOIA request on Monday, December 5th, 2016. RobbbRyder, my email address, court of record, AOL.com, phone number 616-712-6179. If you're trying to get a hold of me, you really need to send me an email. Don't put something in a video link and think I'm going to answer it. I don't read the comments. I just don't have time for it, and it's bad to read your own press anyways. So, if you got something to say to me, send me an email. Court of record, AOL.com. So, last week, towards the end of last week, Rosita was sent a FOIA request. This is a FOIA request. Please send me the procedures how to file complaint with CVB pursuant to Army Regulation 190-45, Military Police Law Enforcement Reporting. There is mentioned the complaint that I can file with CVB. Thank you in advance. By Rosita. And they answered her back, I think, probably the next day. Please direct your complaint in writing to the following address: Ted Willman, CVB Branch Chief, Central Violation Bureau, P.O. Box 780549, San Antonio, Texas 78278. For more information, contact Central Violation Bureau at 800-827-2982, extension 0. That would be Monday through Friday, 6 a.m. to 6 p. or 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. Central Standard Time. So, that was really based off of this video, Option B, Central Violation Bureau, where under the right circumstances, we should be able to write a complaint to somebody, and the place that appears to be is the Central Violation Bureau. And I don't want to get into the details too much. This video would go on too long, but you can watch the other videos to get the rest of what I'm talking about. Yeah, we're not quite ready for those yet. So, in the meantime, so before we get going, if you can, please donate. PayPal account name is my daughter's email address. So you need to go to PayPal to use this, and that would be ashleyrytlewski@gmail.com. Probably easier to write it down and try to remember it. ASHLEYRYTLEWSKI@gmail.com. Credit card? Hey, you could send me an email at courtofrecord@AOL.com and say you have a credit card, because I have another PayPal account that is tied to a credit card that I believe I could use. I have never done it. Mail, you can send it that way. Robert Rytlewski, 10955, 14 Mile Road Northeast, Rockford, Michigan, 49341. And, well, there you are. So, in these videos, right, so in case dismissed administratively, I had shown that in a couple of different court cases that I got, involved in, if you want to call it involved, in the past couple of years, not by putting something into the court, although we did try that too, but they never really seemed to have any effect. We sent things directly to the chief judge, and in both cases, the cases were dismissed, although you wouldn't be able to tell by looking at why they were dismissed that the letters had anything to do with it. I just was making the point, right? And well, and then I had decided, well, I want to go a little bit deeper and do it as a sworn statement. And because I had been in the military, I know they had a sworn statement form, and I went and found it and said, hey, I'm going to use the military sworn statement form. It's good enough for the Army, it's good enough for me. And as we kept on peeling back the onion, all these other little things came up that are kind of covered in these videos, and that's why it'd be a lot easier for you to watch those and me to try to explain it all again. And that's just where we're going to have to leave it. But, so here, after I did these videos, I got a call from a guy here in Michigan who has a car loan issue And then over the weekend, I got a call from somebody else, somewhere else, who has a car loan issue. And I said, well, I'm going to make it about the car loan issue. So, here is a summons and complaint with complaint. Some form used in Michigan, apparently used for car loans, because, as we'll see, it says Credit Acceptance Corporation. We'll just quickly go down here and take a look. What's the complaint? The defendant is indebted to the plaintiff for the sum of some amount of money as a result of an express or implied contract by or between the parties. Okay. Now, I hadn't really noticed this at the time, but see, this got a different number, 16-00932-1. It doesn't say why that's there, but there's that number in that box. Whereas this court case number is 16-1921-GC. That wasn't 1921, was it? No, it's 00932. So why is there a different court case number? I don't know. I'm just assuming that's a court case number in a box, but it doesn't say why it's there. So I'd be asking that question. But what it does say is that Credit Acceptance Corporation is the plaintiff. And it says use the plaintiff's name, address, and telephone number. Well, Credit Acceptance Corporation, if it's a corporation authorized to do business in the state of Michigan, it has its own address. Or it has the address of a registered agent. But it's not the address of the attorney firm that's the plaintiff, because the plaintiff's attorney, right, is Jason Michael Katz, and that's who this guy, care of Jason Michael Katz. So that's incorrect. Can't do that. That's not the plaintiff's address. Now that's what I say, right? But I would want to complain about that, and so we shall. But this goes on to say summons. So this is, you would think this is a summons and complaint together, because if you were to read the Civil Code of Civil Procedures, you're not supposed to just get the summons. You're supposed to get a summons and complaint. That's how you get served. Not just a summons, but a summons and complaint. So on this form, the complaint, instructions, the following. Oh, no, I don't want to go quite that far yet. Let me go up here. Summons. Notice to the defendant. In the name of the people of the state of Michigan, you are notified. Now that looks like it's the proper style for a case that would be covered by a court in the state of Michigan. Again, these are covered in the other videos because they have a proper style. In Michigan, it's in the name of the people of the state of Michigan, but they show it two different ways in the law, with name and people capitalized like proper noun names, and then common noun names like this. But this is in the name of the people of the state of Michigan. You are notified. And you have 21 days to answer. Blah, 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 blah. Where did I want to see? This summons is invalid unless served on or before the expiration date, and this document must be sealed by the seal of the court. Okay, this document doesn't have a court seal on it. And I say that's an indication that we're under martial law, because they're not taking you before the court. Right? There's no court seal. So you're not in court. This is a simulation of a legal process outside of court. It isn't that the court doesn't exist. They're just not taking you to the court. Because this document must be sealed by the seal of the court. So if there's no court seal on this, and an attorney who's supposed to be an officer of the court did it, then he's simulating a legal process, and that's criminal contempt of the Supreme Court. We should point it out to somebody. And we could go on and look, here's a true copy stamp, and it doesn't have a signature on it. In fact, here's the second page. This one's easier to see, right? There's no signature. Well, if you read the Labor Code, Article 6, all civil and penal law shall continue to take its usual course in the enemy's places and territories under martial law unless interrupted or stopped by order of the occupying military power. But all the functions of the hostile government, legislative, executive, or administrative, whether of a general, provincial, or local character, cease under martial law or continue only with the sanction, or if deemed necessary, the participation of the occupier or the invader. Well, to me, this may be in court, but this is an administrative function and it hasn't been signed. I'm just pointing out, hey, nobody signed the damn seal, so, you know, it hasn't been properly done. And I believe that this form has to be attached to the other form. But let's go to the first one. So this is going to say that the defendant is a resident of Waterford, that the defendant is indebted to the plaintiff for $4,600 and some dollars. The plaintiff has completed, that the plaintiff has completed performance of said contract, that although often requested, the defendant has failed and refused to pay the sum. And so it's like, I wonder if this is a different court case that they had that the defendant never really got a copy of, where they've already made this determination, hey, we tried to get it under this other case number and he never appeared. It's got a -1, which is very interesting. Wherefore the plaintiff claims a judgment of $4,600 and some dollars plus interest. Wasn't signed by the attorney. And here it says, you know, that the attorney is Jason M. Katz. Well, he's not using his full legal name. Right? This P number for Jason M. Katz is the same gentleman who was up here with the P number as Jason Michael Katz. Well, if you were to find his P card and look at it, both of those names aren't on there. Only one of them is. And so, again, an officer of the court is using his position to simulate a legal process for private gain. And where did it say? 21 days, file an answer, complaint. Okay. Instructions. The following is information that is required to be in the caption of every complaint and is to be completed by the plaintiff. Actual allegations and the claim for relief must be stated on additional complaint pages and attached to this form. And there wasn't anything attached to this form. What apparently was attached to this form was this page here. Well, I don't see any holes in it. So, I'm not saying that someplace there isn't attached to this more, but the defendant didn't get a copy, and so the defendant didn't get a copy of the complaint as stated in the instructions. Actual allegations and claim for relief must be stated on additional complaint pages and attached to this form, but they're not. What did come with it is this other page, which has to do with order regarding alternate service. And it looks like the same case number, but again, it wasn't signed by anybody. And this is what it looks like. We got a judge, but no bar card. Right? So none of this stuff is done right. It's all simulation of a legal process. They're not doing it the way the law says to do it. And so my idea was to write some words to put on a sworn statement. Now, here's a filled in sworn statement that I showed in the video. Right? And again, I'm not saying you have to use this form. I'm saying I'm going to use this form because for me, if it's good enough for the Army, it's good enough for them. And why is that? Well, because in that courtroom is a gold fringe flag. And that gold fringe flag is not anything to do with the fucking Navy. I got nothing against Navy. I love the Navy. I'm in the Army, and I can tell you right now, that is a national color. That's the flag that the Army guards. In fact, I show you in the video where it's all talked about. So, last week, some lady had called me whose son had gotten in trouble, and I had written this up, and now she has it, and we'll see what happens. You know, I don't know if they did it. I do a lot of things that people never really follow through on, but this is what it said, right? And so I didn't really know what to put up here yet. I mean, obviously, last name, first name, middle name. I want to make sure I make this really clear to people. If it's written this way, I would do it just like it says, Rytlewski, comma, Robert, comma, Allen. However, if it says name, and then in parentheses has last name, first name, middle name, or middle initial, I'm not going to do that. My name is Robert Allen Rytlewski. But this didn't ask for that. It asked for my last name, my first name, my middle name. It's not in parentheses. So I would do it just the way it said. Social Security number, my status, well, I'm a veteran. You could be an elector, you could be a citizen, you could be a peaceful inhabitant. Well, what do you want to be? You know, who are you? And so I just want to show real quick that if you were to go read Army Regulation 840-10, it makes clear that only those in military service may fly the national color. That's in Chapter 1, Section 7, Restrictions, Unauthorized Use of Official Flags. It goes on to say the national color flies in military courtrooms. That's in Chapter 2, Section 3. Without reading this whole one again, or these things just take too long, those are the reasons I'm saying, hey, if there's a gold fringe flag in the courtroom, they're in the military service. And so either it's a military courtroom, or it's a war trophy, and the military needs to come back and get the damn flag. So in this case, back to our summons for credit, right? So this is Credit Acceptance Corporation. Again, that their address isn't care of the attorney that's bringing the action. Credit Acceptance Corporation, if they're authorized to do business, state of Michigan, has its own address. And you can get the stuff off the Secretary of State's website. And this will become important, as you'll see, when we talk about mortgages, because when you read your mortgage, it says that the lender is a corporation incorporated in Delaware. Wow, that makes them a foreign corporation to your state unless you're living in Delaware. And if it's a foreign corporation, well, then they still have to be licensed by the Secretary of State under a thing called Certificate of Authorization, or something to that effect. If they don't have it, well, they can't do business in your state. As it turns out, well, when you go and check, they're not going to have it. In fact, a lady that called me this weekend and sent me a copy, I'm going to show you what the Secretary of State said about theirs. In the state of North Carolina, that I believe it's Wells Fargo, right? They don't have a license to do business in Wells Fargo. So, not to confuse the issue, right? That's later. Let's just stick with Credit Acceptance Corporation and what we might say in a situation like this, right? Because you could use this for a credit card, you could use it for car loan, whatever it is. Just look at the plaintiff, right? Whoever they're putting there as the plaintiff, what's the address? If the attorney's using his address, well, that isn't the address of the plaintiff. And so this attorney is simulating a legal process. And then the closer you look, you'll just see that, you know, the depth they go to. This is why attorneys get woed in the Bible, because they lie, cheat, and steal. So this was my idea for this, right? To whom it may concern. Central Violation Bureau, United States Courts. You just have to go watch the other video. Option B. Chief Judge, 51st District Court, 5100 Civic Center Drive, Waterford, Michigan, 48329. RE, case number 16-1921 GC. Others incorporated by reference. Why? Well, because there's another court case number down here. I don't know what they all are. I know that in the video I showed, or the videos I've shown previously, of those four, the one with administrative dismissal, you know, in one particular case, there's 4 different case numbers. So, you know, yeah, they lie, they cheat, they steal. Get over it. What are you going to do about it? I'm going to take it to the military. Officer of the court, Jason Michael Katz, who's the attorney, and all attorneys are officers of the court. So, officer of the court, Jason Michael Katz. is simulating a legal process in contempt of the dignity of the Supreme Court. He is using the instrumentalities of interstate commerce and mails for fraud and swindles, stole my identity, and violated my civil liberties. I am including as an exhibit to this my sworn statement the summons and complaint with complaint for case number 16-1921 GC, upon which can be found the following concealments, errors, or omissions. Jason Michael Katz, P62-923, is concealing the address of the alleged plaintiff, Credit Acceptance Corporation, and has apparently substituted his own. The instrument mandates that the court seal must be used to seal document, yet there is no evidence of a court seal being used. No page is attached that lists actual allegations and the claim of relief that must be attached to the as stated on the form. Clerk's true copy stamp has not been signed by the clerk. Signature of plaintiff attorney has not been signed. Jason M. Katz is not the full legal name of an attorney at law licensed to practice in the state of Michigan. Sanda Francis is not the full legal name of an attorney at law licensed to practice law in Michigan. Notice, officers of the 51st District Court appear to be violating the Constitution of the United States and the Lieber Code martial law, and I ask for an investigation and disciplinary proceedings against wayward officers of the court and an equitable remedy for the wrong done me by officers of the court. Take judicial notice within the courtrooms over which the Chief Judge of the 51st District Court exercises superintending control, flies the national color in accordance with AR 840-10 2.3. This flag symbolizes said courtroom as a military courtroom and the United States' duty to defend my person from false accusers and rebels. And it may need another paragraph, but this is as far as I got for today. So yeah, that was the idea, to take that, put that on, I closed it already, sorry, on the sworn statement form, and fill out the sworn statement form and send it to the Chief Judge and send it to the CVB. And so after that, if it needs, I think that the Chief Judge is representing the Army. That's my point. The Chief Judge he doesn't sit in court. He oversees and superintends the court. Right? So if there's something happening in his court, he's the one that needs to know about it. And it doesn't take a court case. It's an administrative issue. He needs to take superintending control of an error or omission or a wrong done in his court. He's responsible. So until he knows, well then, he can say he didn't know about it. But where's the one here that Here we go. So Article 11. The law of war does not only disclaim all cruelty and bad faith concerning engagements concluded with the enemy during the war, but also breaking of stipulations solemnly contracted by the belligerents in a time of peace and avowed intended to remain in force in case of war between the contracting powers. It disclaims all extortions and other transactions for individual gain, all acts of private revenge or convenience or connivance of such acts. Offenses to the contrary shall be severely punished, and especially so if committed by officers. Jason Michael Katz is an officer of the court. Sorry, Jason. Right? You may not know the hour of his coming, but if this guy puts it in and they decide to do something, well, they may come and take you and give him a remedy. So, right, there's just an idea of what could be done when you get paper like this, instead of trying to run away from it and, I'm not going to take it. Oh, no, I don't want the paper. No, take the paper. Read the paper. Do something with the paper. File a complaint. because actual allegations and the claim for relief must be stated on additional complaint pages and attached to this form. And there weren't any. It wasn't signed. It doesn't have a stamp. It doesn't have an address for the plaintiff. I mean, why would you be afraid of this, right? The problem is, who do you give it to? It's not. There is no problem whatsoever finding errors, and we don't need to find them all. One thing that's unlawful makes the whole thing unlawful, right? An investigation can find the rest of them. But, you know, if you don't answer, well, then that it just makes it way too easy for them. And, okay, so hang on a second here. Okay. Oh, hang on now. That was the wrong thing to do. If we were to go to the Federal Register, because, you know, people are going to argue that we're under martial law or anything else, right? Hang on. In the Federal Register, if you were to search on national emergency and then look for presidential documents, you would see there's 881 presidential documents on file that you could look at on the Federal Register having to do with national emergencies. And so here was one that was just done 11/14, continuation of the national emergency with respect to Burundi. Continuation of national emergency with respect to proliferation of weapons of mass destruction. Continuation of national emergency with respect to Iran. Continuation of national emergency with respect to Sudan. Continuation of national emergency with respect to the Democratic Republic of the Congo. Continuation of national emergency with respect to significant narcotics traffickers centered in Colombia. Continuation of national emergency with respect to persons who commit, threaten to commit, or support terrorism. And it goes on. Continuation of national emergencies with respect to certain terrorist attacks. There's 881 presidential documents having to do with national emergencies and the continuation of national emergencies. So it's already been proclaimed. Well, if you're under a national emergency, hey, they could suspend your civil rights. And I didn't. I should. Where are you at? We're Greenville, Lieber Code. What's the very first Lieber Code? What's the very first thing it says? A place, district, or country occupied by an enemy stands in consequence of the occupation under the martial law of the invading or occupying army, whether any proclamation declaring martial law or any public warning to its inhabitants has been issued or not. They don't need to tell you you're under martial law. You just need to look at what's going on to say, I'm under martial law. They're not using a frickin' court seal. No court seal. Habeas corpus has been suspended. Habeas corpus is suspended. That means the Constitution is suspended. They don't just suspend one thing. They suspend it all, and then they say, well, but we're going to do this, this, and this. That's my interpretation. So, well, there you are, right? So, yeah, hey, according to this, we're under... I'd say there's a really good chance that somehow, somewhere, the Constitution has been suspended. And the military is in charge under martial law. And so as I showed in the video, the reason for this originally would have been President Lincoln issued an order for martial law. And then soon after, in 1863, the Congress passed an act for suspending habeas corpus. Well, I got to show you again. Jeepers. I mean, this is just too simple to... Why you would want to argue with it, I don't understand. But okay. Martial law does not cease during the hostile occupation except by special proclamation ordered by the Commander-in-Chief or a special mention in a treaty of peace concluding the war. There's only two ways martial law ends, and those things haven't happened. There's never been a peace treaty for the Civil War. The Civil War was never a declared war. It was an insurrection and rebellion. So it still is. And that's when the Constitution can be suspended, is during an insurrection and rebellion. We're still under it. And Lincoln tried to rescind all this stuff at the end of the war, but the states didn't want to give up the power. They liked having they liked it that way. They were in charge. They've not given up the power. So then a lady from North Carolina told me that she called me to say that she, because of the videos I had done, so this is really where the conversation started, and where it ends is never quite where they start. But she had said, hey, I called the Raleigh, North Carolina, and talked to the headquarters of the State National Guard. And she told them, I want to talk to the state provost marshal. And so she got a call back from some sergeant later on who, he was, he was acting like a counter troll and really not wanting to answer her questions and, giving her kind of a hard time. To the point she said, well, this really isn't working for me. I'm going to have to try some other way to get a hold of the provost marshal. And the guy said, well, hang on a minute, I got it for you right here. And then he gave her all the information for the provost marshal. And so after she had talked to her husband about it, I'm sure he's correct. I mean, basically the guy's just interrogating her to see, is she a kook? Does she have a claim? What is it she's talking about? And so forth. Because she was talking about filling out the sworn statement form and sending it in against a military officer for violating her civil rights. Right? Now that officer is the officer of the court, which is this attorney firm, right? Because she's involved in a foreclosure. But one of the other things that she had done, now this is in North Carolina, and I don't know that this is going to be the same everywhere, but let's just look at it for the time being, right? She says if you go to the special proceedings window, right? And in North Carolina, that's the window for adoptions, foreclosures, guardianship, name changes, things of that nature. That you can put a case in there for really, really cheap, like, $10 or something like that. And so I don't know exactly what hers was, and I hope to get some more information, but it doesn't really matter. If you're in a foreclosure in North Carolina, this is where the attorney went to put the court case in, is here, to this window, Special Proceedings Division. And so that's where you would go to answer, as the Special Proceedings Division. Now, I don't know where they normally have people answering. All courts are a little bit different, but you need to go to the place where the court case was put in. Special proceedings consist of a variety of different actions that do not fit any other of the clerk office's divisions. Some examples of such proceedings include foreclosures, adoptions, legitimations, matters involving juveniles, motor vehicle liens, and incompetency and guardianship proceedings. Well, these are the people that need to know we're in our sui juris legal personality, and we're not a ward of the state. We don't need a guardian. We haven't broken any laws. We're not, we're not a political prisoner or a state prisoner or these type of things. So this could really build into something more here in a bit. But just for today, so she had gone here to put in her own case against her foreclosure. And part of that would have been then to serve the plaintiff and the plaintiff's attorney. And that's what this is about. So when she did this, she got a letter back from the Secretary of State's office. Now, again, she went down this isn't her county. She's not from Wake County. I just happened to find this online. But it wasn't the clerk of the Superior Court of Wake County. It was the Secretary of State's office saying, hey, you need to pay us $10 for us to serve these papers. And so that got the Secretary of State's office involved. And so these are the blah blah of the Secretary of State. I told the lady I wouldn't show her name and so forth, so I just cut and pasted. But so one was certified mail, return receipt requested, Brock and Scott P. LLC, wherever they are, Brock and Scott P. LLC, SOS file number. See, they are registered with the Secretary of State under that number. Here's the docket number, 16R1923, ladies and gentlemen. Enclosed, please find a notice of satisfaction of claim other than payment served on the Secretary of State as statutory agent for service of process for the entity referenced above. So who got served? The Secretary of State got served. The service of process section of the Department of the Secretary of State on October 12, 2016 received these documents. The Secretary of State is required by law to forward these documents to the entity referenced above. Pursuant to some law, service on an entity under this subsection is effective for all purposes from and after the date of service on the Secretary of State. So again, our sister went to this window, special proceedings window, to open a court case, which is called, I guess, satisfaction of claim other than payment. And it was then sent to the Secretary of State's office. Very cool. So there was two, right? This is the one to the attorney firm, and then this was the other one that was sent back to her that said, please enclose, please find a copy of your document served on the Secretary of State as statutory agent for service of process for the entity referenced above, which was Wells Fargo. These documents were received by the service of process section of the of the Secretary of State. Let me say it again. These documents were received by the service of process section of the Department of the Secretary of State on October 12th, 2016. The Secretary of State is required by law to forward this document to the entity referenced above, pursuant to and in accordance with the North Carolina General Statutes. However, after a thorough and diligent search of the Corporation Division database, I was unable to find any information for the above referenced corporation's existence in our database evidencing authority to transact business in North Carolina. According to some North Carolina general statute, when an entity required to maintain a registered office and registered agent under the statute fails to appoint or maintain a registered agent in this state, or when its registered agent cannot with due diligence be found at the registered office, or when the Secretary of State revokes a certificate of authority or a statement of foreign registration of a foreign entity authorized to transact business or conduct affairs in this state, the Secretary of State becomes an agent of the entity whom any such process, notice, or demand may be served. If the entity in question has not incorporated itself with this office, or has not obtained a certificate of authority to transact business here, then it is deemed that the entity is not operating under the statutes in which we have authority to accept service. In other words, a break in the law. And so this is, they tried to serve, basically they're saying, hey, Wells Fargo doesn't have any authorization to do business in the state. Now, I didn't see the summons and complaint that would have been sent by the attorney, but I wonder if it's like the last one we saw where they have the name of the plaintiff, but does it have an address? And if it does have an address, is the address of the attorney? So all you need to do is, if you get served for foreclosure, is to go look at the name of the plaintiff and just take the name just the way you see it and see if your state has them listed as being able to do business in your state. And if not, well, then you could file a complaint. Now, what the sister's doing here is she's doing her own action, against them, which I'm not going to say is right or wrong. I'm going to say, well, that's one way to do it, where you can try to be your own attorney. But if you put in a complaint and you're correct, then the United States of America will be the plaintiff, and you'll be the ex-rel plaintiff in a qui tam proceeding. And, the government will get you your remedy. So I'm not saying to go, do what she did necessarily. I'm just saying, well, this is where they put the stuff in at this window here. This is where the foreclosures and stuff go in. So more on that later. It just, all these little details that are available when people talk to each other. So, hang on a second. Okay, now for something really different. Part of this thing about mortgages is that somebody apparently takes your mortgage loan, sells it to somebody else who takes the loan, and for the loan gives a certificate. And so then it becomes the certificate is the thing you need to find. And so how do you find this paperwork? Because we've been trying to do this in Bob's case in Arizona, where they tell him to go talk to the servicer. But the servicer they show on mirrors is a place called, oh shit, I don't remember. PNN, PCC, some mortgage company. But it's not the lender that was on his deed of trust, which is Merrill Lynch, which according to Fannie Mae's rules, Merrill Lynch is the servicer because they're the lender, and the lender becomes the servicer. And this Merrill Lynch, well, guess what? They don't have a license to do business in Arizona. Interesting. And they never lent you any money, right? But they did take your money. Anyways, eventually, you end up with this thing called a MIN number. And this is called the milestone report for MIN numbers, right? So this is your MIN number. It's an 18-digit number. Normally it doesn't have any dashes in it, but this time it does. And what it's showing is, see where this series of numbers here, these 10 digits, they're going to call that a loan number. But that loan number isn't necessarily the loan number that Fannie Mae or somebody else gave to it, but it's the one they're going to use. And give it another one, and that's how they're going to tie the two together, is by reference. Long story short, if you go to mirrorsonline.org, and if you were a servicer, you could go online and you could pull this form up. And it would show, for any particular loan, who the guarantor is. In this case, the guarantor is Ginnie Mae. So the guarantor has to have some idea where the loan is. Because what we're trying to find is the Ginnie Mae number or the Fannie Mae number or whatever their loan number is. Because they would have been the ones who took the mortgage note and gave a certificate. And to find the certificate, Fannie Mae told Bob, well, to find your certificate, we would have to have your Fannie Mae loan number. That's what we're looking for, is a Fannie Mae loan number, or whatever the loan number is, to go to that entity to say, here's your loan number, what's the certificate number that goes with it? Because once we have the certificate and we know who the paying agent is, you can give the certificate to the paying agent and get paid for your investment. So if that wasn't too confusing, that's the problem with trying to do too much at one time. But again, those would have been covered in the Fannie Mae videos that I had shown at the beginning. And so you just need to go back, watch the last 4 videos or so, and then this one, and you'll be caught up with what the latest round of stuff is that we're doing. So, what's a guarantor? Well, according to Fannie Mae, the guarantor and cosigners are credit applicants who do not have ownership interest in the subject property as indicated on the title. They sign the mortgage or deed of trust note, have joint liability for the note with the borrower, do not have any interest in the property sales transactions such as property seller, builder, or real estate broker. So it's not somebody like that. So who is it? Well, it said they signed the mortgage or deed of trust note. Well, let's go look at one. Who signs the frickin' note? So here's a note. Now, who signed the note? Harold did, Leah did, and so did SunTrust Mortgage. I say they signed the note. Right? This is who the guarantor is. Now, this loan number is this number here, right? 01439, yada, 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 up to the 3, right? That's like the section right here in the milestone number. But they wrote a number in on top, X-19966311907, which is a 10-digit number, which I believe if we knew who the guarantor was, they would be able to tell us whose loan number that is. Is that Fannie Mae's loan number? Is that Ginnie Mae's loan number? Is that, whose loan number is that, right? That loan number there, I'm believing, would lead you to the certificate. And the certificate will lead you to the paying agent. And the certificate and the paying agent is how you get paid to settle your account. Now, Bob in Arizona was told that by the New York Bank of Mellon, who's listed as the paying agent in a prospectus for, actually I believe it's for this one right here, right? That this was his buddies who were using that as an example. And so he had called the paying agent and say, well, you know, how do I get paid? We thought we could just take on the note, because we had the note, have his buddy sign this line right here, pay to the order of, because it's endorsed in blank. But as soon as somebody signs this line right here, this thing is supposed to become payable on demand. And we just demand payment from SunTrust Mortgage because, well, apparently they're the guarantor. So well, we'll have to see what happens. But I'm just saying, you may want to get this milestone report. Now, Bob, I showed him this because this came from somebody else, basically. And so I say, hey, Bob, go check to see if you can get yours for this. And so he called them, and if you go to the MIRSonline.org site, it shows that it's for servicers. It's really not for borrowers, but it has a phone number and a help desk. So he called them, and they said, well, you're going to have to check with your servicer to have them get this for you. But they were very surprised that he knew about such a thing as a milestone report. And so that, we don't know how, who knows how significant that is, but they were surprised that he knew that this thing called a milestone report existed. And when he said, well, who's my servicer? They meant the servicer as the person that's on your deed of trust. So in Bob's case, it says here, right, and so go find your deed of trust, and when you look at it, the lender is Merrill Lynch Credit Corporation. Lender is a corporation organized and existing under the laws of Delaware. Well, that would mean it's not an Arizona corporation. And to do business in Arizona, it needs to be authorized by the Secretary of State of Arizona to do so. And I haven't been able to find that they are. The trustee is First American Title Inc. That is not the proper name of the First American Title Insurance Company, which does exist. Right? So this is like a pseudonym or a trade name or something. But this is a legal document, and that isn't their legal name. And then we have MIRS. right? Mears is also organized and existing under the laws of Delaware. So Mears can't do business in Arizona either unless Mears is registered in Arizona to do business. So this person here called the lender is the servicer at the primary level. And this servicer is the one that's supposed to be the one handling or contacting the person called the document custodian to get documents for you. Well, Merrill Lynch Corporation has contracted with somebody else to act as their servicer. But they're not your servicer. They're Merrill Lynch's servicer. You contact Merrill Lynch and they can have their contractor go get the paper, do all the stuff they want, but your servicer by contract is Merrill Lynch Credit Corporation, which is organized and existing under the laws of Delaware. And it doesn't appear that they have a license to do business in the state of Arizona. And so they never lent you any money because they never signed the deed of trust. No one other than the borrower has signed the deed of trust. And so there is no contract. The deed of trust is an agreement. It's a business contract. There is no meeting of the minds, hasn't been signed. Therefore, it's a simulation of a legal process. Because these people are using forms that were created by Fannie Mae. Fannie Mae is a federal corporation. It was created by the Congress. And so somebody's using Fannie Mae forms to commit mortgage fraud. And so, hey, we're going to put this on a complaint and send it the same way as the other ones to the Violation Bureau and see what they do with it. Now, Bob's going to, just contact him directly and see if he can get this information. We really just want to find the certificate and the paying agent and go get paid. Right? That's the number one thing. But that's what you would do if you're not in a foreclosure. If you are in a foreclosure, well, then it's a little bit different story, right? You would want to say, hey, the plaintiff doesn't have a license to do business in your state. And so I'm going to work on the words for those over the next few days as something to maybe put onto a sworn statement military form to send to the CVB, which is the Central Violation Bureau, to send to the chief judge, which is, well, let's just send it to the chief judge, to put in your court case if you think that you want to, and so forth and so on. Now, as I remember, the one I did for the lady whose son had some trouble and he was in court on Thursday, look, they said, well, we're not going to let you put that in the court case. Right? Here's what I have to say to that. If you go down there with paper, you don't leave with paper. You just give it to them and say, well, you've been served. Right? What's your name? I'll make sure the military knows. We could do all that. But I'm going to say, well, you've been served and leave it with them. Give it to the prosecutor. You've been served. No, I'm not taking it back. You've been served. No, that's your copy. Keep it. It's yours. I don't need it. I got plenty. See, you got more. I'm going to give one to the judge. That's yours. You've been served. Make sure they know they've been served. Give it to them. You've been served. That's called personal service. So, it's all the fuzzy ends that we need to get them all nice and packed together to figure out how they all fit together. But I can see now that this is, all they're doing is this all depends on us never figuring out what door to go to get a remedy. But once we do, there's not much they're going to be able to do about it. And the one thing that's indisputable is that flag with gold fringe is a military flag. And that means that courtroom is under military control. And if we ain't using court seals and there's nobody signing papers, then it appears that, hey, we're under martial law and the military's in charge. And you shouldn't be afraid of that. You should run towards them because the military doesn't have a problem with peaceful inhabitants. It has problems with belligerents. It needs to know who you are. Are you a friend or a foe? So I'm going to leave it at that. And I got to be gone for a couple of days, but when I return, we'll pick it up and see where we are then. If you can, though, I'm going to ask you one more time. Hey, please donate. I can't pay my, I can almost pay my rent for December. I'm just a little bit shy, but I got to pay my electric yet and my cable bill. Amen. It'll all work out in the end. I'm quite confident. Y'all have a great day now. See ya.